Mr. Larsson, hi. We are in Green Cities conference in Bursa.
Yes.
You said that you heard first time in before.
When I was contacted to come here, it was the first time I had ever heard of Bursa. I've been to Turkey, to Ankara, to Izmir, to Antalya, to of course Istanbul, but I had never heard of Bursa. And then I heard that there was a ferry going to it from Istanbul, and I thought it must be 10 or 20,000 population suburb or something like that.
Actually, do you know the theme of Bursa is green? Do you know? We say green Bursa.
Okay, that's good.
Yes, for 50 years maybe.
Well, you have a lot of hills here, which I guess are difficult to build on. We also have some places where the Canadian developers have not been able to destroy the land by cutting everything down because they were too steep.
You should see the Black Sea side, Trabzon and Rize. Okay. I advise you.
Oh, good, I will.
They are building incredible construction at the top of the hills.
Oh.
It is very interesting.
Yeah.
You were talking about very interesting subjects. One of them was vegetations.
Vegetation, the role of vegetation in
what is that?
Providing cooling. Well, leaves, they have water evaporating off the leaves, which cools the leaves and the surrounding air. And also leaves block sunlight from entering or from hitting the building wall or the window, and therefore you get a combined effect which can be quite considerable. And there have been tests. The figure I showed was from Athens, and which can be uncomfortably hot, but it was quite a considerable cooling effect from that. So I just encourage people, if you can, put trees and of various. You have to be careful to select. You need advice from gardeners and botanists, but put them on the southwest, south, and southeast sides of a building. That will be very helpful in cooling. And also, of course, parking areas, because you have the asphalt, which really absorbs a lot of heat. And if you can have trees planted. When I was a young architect, just starting out, I was a student in Eastern Canada. I had to draw up a parking lot for a shopping center. And I asked the boss in the office, can we put trees here between each row of parking? And he said, look, son, it's going to be fine. We'll paint a green strip down. That was the first greenwashing. So,
very interesting.
Yes.
You made me scared actually during your presentation. You said
well,
that.
It scares the hell out of me too. Well, I'll be dead when the main things happen, but your grandchildren won't.
Yes, you said 6 to 12 degrees rising.
Well, what happens? Look, I'm not a climate expert. I've read a lot of the climate IPCC stuff for 10 years, and I tried to link it to the building sector. But what is true is that the 2 degrees limit global temperature rise doesn't look like it's going to be viable. It's probably going to be 2.5 or 3 degrees. And then these scenarios of consumption level, industrialization level, and so on. In other words, comparison between living a quiet life in a place with not much industry or not much cars to like in Istanbul, that's a huge difference, and it has a lot of different results in the kind of heat generation that is set up in the area. Then you have precipitation as well. Rain, snow, there are a lot, increased frequency now, severe weather events with heavy rain and heavy flooding. And that also leads to soil instability. And I talked about the heat wave in France in 2003. That was a really traumatic event for a lot of French people. and it's going to come back.
You are telling some very little
Anecdotes?
differences. No, not anecdotes, but you are saying that we can make some very small differences to change the things.
Well, the thing is, to change things globally, we need the big global players like China, America, those places really primarily to really reduce very quickly their greenhouse gas emissions. China is converting now from coal to other sources of energy. They're trying. America has now the fracking of oil and gas, and the natural gas that they get is much more efficient for generating power. So that's a helpful interim step. But of course it's not enough in the long run. And then there's renewable energies, and it's not, the renewable energy situation is a little complicated, because if you take Germany as an example, they have feed-in tariffs, they're called, where they pay the producers of renewable energy to feed the electricity into the power grid. But what happened last year in the summer was, because the renewable producers have priority over access to the grid, it caused a huge problem for those power suppliers, the so-called base load suppliers that are producing steady, nuclear or big plants. They're expensive or difficult to shut down or to even turn down. And so it's not without its problems. And that's why in our synergy zone proposal, we see using it much more locally and having DC circuits in buildings, not just AC. Because DC can be used directly by a lot of systems, and then you don't lose conversion efficiency going to AC and then DC backing up.
This is Edison, Tesla discussion.
My wife spent her early childhood in an apartment in New York City. This would have been 1947 to 49, in a flat that had DC power. From the original Edison days. They had to buy special appliances that would work.
Interesting.
But that's gone. Yeah.
We are talking about Tesla was much more better.
Yes,
you said something different. You said during your presentation 9 things to do.
Yeah.
I will ask those one by one to you.
Okay.
First, you said you were telling this for Bursa, but can be managed in everywhere.
Of course. These are general, because I didn't know anything about Bursa really, So I was just trying to fulfill the expectation that I would provide some helpful advice to Bursa.
I see.
Yeah.
You said lunch festivals. Why you said this?
Well, festivals are a good way of generating publicity and tourism.
Awareness.
The French are very good at festivals. They have regional governments provide support for festivals of music, of drama, of art, of food even. So there are ways there of having, if you have special skills in Bursa for a certain kind of cuisine, that could become a little festival. And so it's not a big idea, it's just a fun idea.
But it is a fun, you are right. In Turkey, since 50s, I think, 1950s, there is a immigration.
Yes,
from
big immigration.
Urban sides, even villages, to the big cities.
Yes.
But you said now, as a second point, you should be encouraged to move to the urban areas.
Well, there's no free lunch, right? So what I'm saying is that it's it's stupid to waste precious land. Very often, cities are located in land that was good for agriculture, and that's why they started to grow there. And now you take this land to build low-rise 1 or 2 story houses with a lot of big property around it, and then you use more land to build roads to it. It's dumb. And yes,
I agree with you.
There's a problem with overcrowding, of course, if you bring everyone into the city. But new development on the outskirts, at least, should be a high density, medium to high density. Should be make very efficient use of land.
What are you thinking that skyscrapers,
I have written a paper against them, saying that in principle.
Why?
In principle, look, gravity increases as you go up, so the weight taken by the bottom part of the structure has to carry all the top part. There are some developments in elevator technology now that help, but it used to be really that the bottom was occupied by an enormous number of elevator shafts. So it was very inefficient. It's much more costly.
And also there is some discussions that they can be triggering the earthquakes.
Oh, triggering earthquakes?
Triggering.
Yeah, I'm not a geologist, so I don't know. But I suppose in a very, very delicate zone that might be the case. But I'll tell you another thing. The 9/11 disaster in New York, they had a commission that looked at the safety of egress or exiting in case of fire. They recommended some big changes in the way buildings were designed. They were not adopted, which to me is really irresponsible.
Third point was neighborhoods, and there I have another note that you said tax in
what I was suggesting was that a lot of neighborhoods have an unbalanced use of land because they were either industrial originally or agricultural or residential. So it would be good to balance more the land use so that people don't have to drive cars long distances to go shopping or to go home from work to home, and so on. That's a theoretical point. Cities are so different and neighborhoods are so different that I just want to call people's attention to the fact that we should try to have more balance in neighborhoods that are unbalanced. And you can do that through incentives, tax incentives.
This point was very interesting for me. You said that some corridors, green corridors.
Oh yes.
Bicycle.
Yes. But I see that's being done in Bursa.
Yes.
So that's great. I'm very happy to hear that. I didn't know,
But not in Istanbul.
No,
I am living in Istanbul because I said.
There are some places that are friendlier towards bicycles than others, but you have to start sometime. And
it is also, as you said, very important for health.
Yes, and Turkey, like a lot of countries, the citizens love their cars, right? Cars are lovely things. Modern cars are very efficient, very beautiful, comfortable, but there are implications in terms of the road space. My wife and I sold our house in downtown Ottawa 10 years ago, moved into a rental apartment, got rid of our car. We don't have a car. And I save a hell of a lot of money, and I bicycle a lot, and in the winter I take the bus, which is quite good, and or a taxi.
Actually, we do not like very much to drive a car, but problems are coming from that immigration story. City was going big and big every day, and there was no transportation for mass.
Okay.
That was the problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, you said in 6th point that neighborhood associations support.
if the culture supports it. I mean, I'm not sure of the Turkish situation, but they can be very useful allies in supporting measures for sustainable performance, and they can be very bad opponents if you don't try to work with them. And even if there's no formal associations, a group will form if you propose something that will, what they consider, destroy their neighborhood. Like putting wind turbines in. There are a lot of American people who are very prominent in environmental issues, but suddenly when somebody proposes to put a wind turbine in their neighborhood, they say, "Oh my God, no, this is terrible, and it's too much noise," and it's all baloney for the most part. But yeah.
And now another interesting point. We experienced a big problem last year, Gezi Park. There was a green place, still it is green today. They were trying to build their huge...
In Istanbul?
Yes, shopping center.
Yeah.
So you said
the
very
new
interesting...
palace was built in Ankara on preserved land, yes? I passed by it earlier this year. All the lights were on. Oh, it's big.
Yes.
$860 million or something dollars.
Yeah.
The Gezi Park, I don't know exactly where it is or what it looks like.
In the center of Taksim, in the center of Istanbul.
Okay.
There is some other stories too. For example, in the beginning of November, a company, energy company, cut the 6,000 olive trees. So I will ask here your 70 point. You said that professional associations like engineer associations, architects,
real estate.
You said should be
become allies. You should work with them to help.
Why is that? And it is not like this country.
Because they can be roadblocks if you don't get them on your side to help introduce good ideas. And even if they don't even dare to say, "Oh, we're against this," they can still say, "Well, let's think about it a little bit, and we can't rush into things." This has happened over and over again in North America. So it's, I just think that you really have to take into account their importance, either as obstacles or as help in introducing some ideas.
And you said that very ambitious performance.
Oh, yeah. We found,
we are doing in Turkey for the last 10 years.
That's good.
It is some related with earthquake, we experience very...
Oh, like stability in earthquakes, yeah.
Yes.
No, that's great.
Also...
Energy.
Yes.
Oh, that's good, yeah. I don't know the details of the energy program, but I do know that in Canada I ran a demonstration program for high-performance buildings from 1994 to 2000. And we really found that it worked best when we had this process, integrated design process we called it. But in that process that we developed 3 models to assess the performance of. The first model was what would you ordinarily do without, the kind of normal stuff you do, so-called business as usual. Now, what would you do for good, exceptional performance, really good performance, a sort of very good performance that you could be proud of? And what about the maximum possible performance? But if you develop these schematic models at the early stage, it doesn't cost much to develop them. And you've got your regular one here anyway, and building a conventional one on this particular site, then it's going to look like this, but it's going to be like our normal buildings. You've got that, we can put it to the side, and that also provides a reference point for simulation of energy performance. And then you compare the very good one to it, and you compare the best one to it, and you see, oh, we can save 15%. Oh, we can save 46% with the best one. Now, what's the cost of the best one? Oh, it's only, 18% more, and we can regain that in a few years. Or else, no, it's far too much money, and we can't afford it. You see, you don't say you must do this, but you lead them through options where they see the logic of it. But you also need regulations, and
Yes.
you need to raise the regulations, requirements.
But you said that the new buildings almost 5% something.
Oh, the number of the total building stock of new buildings.
It is a problem.
Well, no. It would be an exceptional country or region where new buildings were 5% of the stock. Usually, it's 1 or 2 or 3%.
Oh,
Yeah, because existing buildings. I mean, count the buildings in Bursa, and then look at the number of new building permits each year, and you will find it's like 1 or 2 or 3%.
what should do for the old?
What I'm saying is it's very important, and you won't solve the performance problem in the city as a whole until you address those. And that means upgrading the performance of existing buildings is a custom job. That's the trouble. You can have standard technologies, but each building is kind of unique because of its history. And there may even have been, I've come across standard things that were standard buildings 50 years ago, and there were lots of them, but they evolved differently because they had additions and changes and so on. So it's you can try to standardize components and systems, but you end up having a custom job. But it's hugely important.
Yes, we have a program in Turkey for 5 years.